tonight, a killer song from the Smashing Pumpkins. The band's been churning out hits for years, selling 30 million albums, achieving worldwide fame. The new album, Oceania. I knew I'd get it wrong.
They said you'd get it wrong.
I know. Oceania is out today. Billy Corgan is, of course, the founder and frontman for the Smashing Pumpkins, and joins me now. Welcome, Billy.
Welcome.
I was expecting it's like a smouldering volcano when they booked you. I thought this angry man of rock would come in.
I'm sure you'll get to it, Piers. You're very good at that.
Well, sort of Mike Tyson of music, you know? There'd be like this undercurrent of menace across the desk. But you seem quite affable to me.
Well, I like your show, so that's different. That has a lot to do with it, you know? I talk to a lot of people, I don't respect them, and so that I walk in the room with that.
Well, that actually means a lot to me.
I've seen you do some great interviews, and I think for somebody who's been interviewed a lot, and I know people in my position understand, there's the right interview, and then there's like you start phoning it in because it's just robot language, you know?
What is the kind of interview that absolutely sends you demented?
It's, they just Google you, and then they just go with all the headlines. They don't actually get, to me, if you're talking to an artist, it's such a rare opportunity to get into the mind of the artist, and the greatest interviewers, people like you and Charlie Rose, I mean, they penetrate into a place where you go, okay, now I understand why they are like that. That's what I want to know as a fan of somebody.
What do you think of America right now? I know that you're a political.
You're starting right up.
Yeah. I'm interested in your view of your country.
I'm very disappointed in my country right now because I think we've kind of lost our moral compass. We've turned into kind of a whining society. And listen, I've done plenty of whining in my life, but I think at some point we have to get out of this paternalistic churn we're in where we want daddy to come and save us and the banks to come and save us, and we need to get back to a level of social responsibility that we haven't seen for a long time. And I mean, I'm just an artist. I can only do so much. I can only say so much. I'm not a hero, but I'm disappointed. The level of political and cultural rhetoric is so low. It's kind of shocking, and everyone just seems to be okay with it. Like, well, that's just the way it goes. And I'm sorry, but I'm from the lower middle class. I see the middle class hollowing out. I see my family's people in my family really struggling. I know so many people struggling, and yet we're still arguing about these kind of really stupid, nuancy things which, you know, political commentators know are BS, but they guys kind of play along. Well, that's political theater. Well, meanwhile, it's affecting real people, real lives, and families, and that's really hard for me to watch.
Your comment there about sort of paternal and maternal responsibility. You, of course, grew up in a weird situation where both your natural parents kind of distanced themselves from you at a very young age and left you just to run your life as you could. How much has that guided your sense of people not being reliant on their parents?
That's a really good question. I don't know. I think that we all take our experiences and from a spiritual point of view, it's whether or not we transmute those experiences into something positive. You know, for a lot of years I just complained, you know, and I looked like a very unhappy rock star. And then one day I woke up and I thought I had a different responsibility in this world. I don't know if it was being in my 30s or something, and I started thinking about the world differently and seeing my place in it, and started thinking, wow, you know, my record sales versus what's really going on in my country or the world. I mean, I got to get some proportionality here. Once I started doing that, I started seeing the world with much different eyes.
Politically, you've been, I wouldn't say vague, but has ever been able to really pin you down. Are you an Obama man at heart?
No. No, I was basically raised a Democrat in essence, in a somewhat liberal family. When you grow up around drug addicts and freaks, you know, you tend to lean left, you know. And I remember as a kid, you know, it was a lot of anti-Nixon stuff, and you know, in essence, in my family's mind, the 50s archetype of the shut down alcoholic male sort of worked with the Republican Party for a while, you know. It's like, but I also remember my grandmother Connie sitting in front of the TV when Reagan was nominated, before he was nominated for the candidacy, and crying and saying he's going to bring this country back. So I had that experience. You know, my grandmother was an immigrant from Italy, and I saw real tears in her eyes because she thought Reagan was going to restore this country to whatever she thought. So I've lived in both paradigms. I'm at the point now where I don't trust either political party. I don't see a reasonable third-party independent run for anybody who's rational and going to get there. But the choices we have are so compromised, I just don't get it. But again, that seems, everybody wants the theater more than they want the reality.
What is the kind of leader that you're craving? in an American president?
Moral compass. And that's where I'm disappointed in the president, is he ran on a moral compass agenda. But what happened, you know? I mean, I'm sure there's lots of good reasons, and I'm sure they'll roll somebody out to counter thoughts like that, but I don't see it. I don't see it. And I travel the world, you know, and so do you. And, you know, I've seen foreigners really shift on their view of America, and that's hard for me to take. I still believe in my country. I know that the working class of this country is what this country is really about. That's what I grew up in. That's my people. And when I see them broken down, I mean, that's hard to watch.
I saw the premiere of Aaron Sorkin's new drama, Newsroom, which is based around a cable news show like this, starring Jeff Daniels. I watched it last night, and at the start, Jeff Daniels' character, makes this kind of polemic speech to a bunch of students. And the point he makes, he's asked about what he thinks of America. He says that it's completely wrong to say America is still the greatest country in the world. It used to be, and it can be again. But actually, statistically, if you look at all the criteria, education, science, literacy, etc., America's lagging way behind now, many countries. What do you think?
I agree. I mean, I don't see the vigorous democracy, not democratic, the vigorous democracy that I was raised to believe in, and I don't understand where that went. Now, does that mean that somebody wants that debate to go down because it's easier to control, you know, narcotize people, or is it just, you know, we're also stuck in our phones now that we don't have time to care about the reality of our country? I don't really totally understand all the causal effects. I mean, I have theories, but...
Well, one theory could be, of course, the celebrification of America, and in fact, most of the civilized world and politics may be part of the problem. Let's take a break. I want you to hang on that thought. How much can we blame celebrities? Let's start naming a few. Smashing Pumpkins' Billy Corgan. That track is The Celestials from the band's new album, Oceania, which was released today. I got it right that time. Congratulations, Piers. I finally get the guy's album title correct. Let's talk about celebrities. Because it seems to me you flirt on both sides of this fence. You've been very pally.
Literally flirted.
Well, I would have thought instantly, I would have thought someone like you would rail against the whole Paris Hilton genre of celebrity for being talentless, even though I like her, talentless but made themselves very famous. And yet you've been matey with her. You've been mating with other stars of that genre. So, what is your...
Have you ever rolled in the hay with a few of them?
I know you have. Do you want to name how many you've rolled in the hay with?
More than one and less than five?
Jessica Simpson was one, right? Did you actually roll in the hay with her?
She actually has a hay bale in her bedroom. and the leftover cowboy hat in the movie.
So a little part of you is drawn to these
Absolutely.
kind of stars.
I think, look, I grew up in the 1970s, and, you know, Dallas and Gilligan's Island. I mean, I love American culture in that way. It's when it's risen to this other kind of psychotic level that's kind of frightening, especially some of the messages it sends young women, and then the way it sort of reverts back on the celebrities as if they're supposed to carry some sort of mantle. Somebody like Jessica, who can't even gain 5 pounds or lose 5 pounds without creating a headline. I mean, you can say whatever you want, whether you're a fan or not, but I mean, to put a woman in that position, that's not her creating that position. And I don't want to hear this argument that, oh, they're celebrity whores. It's a little more complicated than that. Now, I give credit to people like Paris and Kim Kardashian for creating an industry out of their people's obsession with them. That's American, great, God bless them. It's the people who pretend that they're not that make me crazy.
But does it, here's why I have an issue with it, and I actually like both Paris and Kim. I've interviewed them several times, I like them. I see no problem with them doing the best that they can. They both work very hard at it. But is there a problem fundamentally with a society and a culture which puts people like that on a pedestal, in the sense that it inevitably chips away at the mystique of people who perhaps are more deserving of star status? If you go back 50 years and you have the great actors, the great singers, the only way you could be famous in that era was to be genuinely world-class talented. And that's gone.
And even if you look at Hollywood, the way Hollywood beauty standards have shifted, You know, we've gone to Lauren Bacall to like Girl Next Door. Now, there's nothing wrong with Girl Next Door, but the American public has become more sort of me obsessed, and that's where I think the projected thing happens. They want to project. It's easier for them to project than somebody like Kim Kardashian than it is somebody like you know, Linda Evangelista, who's one of the most beautiful women in the world. It's like there's a next door neighbor kind of snippy, bitchy quality to it.
What do you feel about Twitter? Because you're an active tweeter, but you
Unfortunately,
there's a bit of thing to it.
much to my detriment.
Well, the thing is, you can't help but read all the terrible stuff on there, which is one of the downsides, which I sort of enjoy. You had a great quote. You said the internet's made everyone Archie Bunker, which I love because it effectively has. Yeah, of course, the flip side is that everyone now has a voice if they want on Twitter.
Yeah.
Why shouldn't they have a voice? Why shouldn't their opinion, their tweet be as valuable to the world as yours or
I
mine?
have no problem with that. I have a problem when, look, if you talk to most people, they have a hard time understanding what social responsibility means. You know what I mean? Like, I'm out there and I understand the social responsibility in the position. I don't just say anything I want.
Tell me quickly about Oceania. It's out now.
Yeah.
What do you feel about this album?
Well, what's interesting about it in my life is, you know, I made some great albums in the 90s, and which became sort of almost like a millstone around my neck. You know, oh, you'll never reach that height again, you'll never do it, you need the old band, da-da-da-da. Well, then I make an album that's just as good as those albums, and they go, wait a second, maybe you did do those albums, and okay, now the question is, why did you stop making these kinds of albums? And they can't understand the cultural aspects of to be an artist and suddenly be in the downturn of the music business, have fans start making it about the past, and then you find yourself kind of reacting and rejecting against those expectations. Only through maturity and a little bit of spiritual revelation have I realized that I was diminishing myself on some level to try to answer some question that I could answer. And so this is just my way of saying I could have done this all along, and now I'm in a good place where I can do this.
Well, it's a terrific album. You are true to yourself, and that is an unusual quality in many musicians, in my experience, particularly of the modern type. So I wish you all the very best with it.
Thank you.
Billy, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.